Most of the greatest stories in film are part of a trilogy, or a whole trilogy. Just look at the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or the Dark Knight trilogy, and you'll see that trilogies can make for some of the greatest film experiences. Trilogies give the space for a really complex, emotional story without dragging out into an 8-film saga. But trilogies also come in a few different shapes, and today I'm going to attempt to define those. There are really only 3 different structures for a trilogy of trilogies if you will, and these can be defined by how many stories they tell, 1, 2 or 3, and I'll explain each of these and look at how they impact the story they tell, and I'll also give my favourite example for each, and then I'll tell you about the secret 4th type at the end. The first and most common type of trilogy tells 3 stories, 1 in each film. This is where you'd put most superhero trilogies, most animated trilogies. It's an endless list. Trilogies in this category are pretty easy to define. The first film, like most films, has a complete plot, character arcs are complete, and then it gets a sequel, which will expand or complicate the world building of the first. But again, by the end, everyone is happy, and rinse and repeat for the third film. But this then opens up a different debate. Can any 3 films be considered a trilogy? Well, I'd argue that for 3 films to count as a trilogy, they need a monumental ending to the third film. At the end of How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, the people of Berk set their dragons free. At the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, most of the Guardians leave the team, and Rocket starts a new team. At the end of Cars 3, Lightning McQueen retires. You get the idea. So this is why I'd argue the Spider-Man trilogy starring Tobey Maguire isn't really a trilogy, whereas the one starring Tom Holland is a trilogy. He finishes high school and starts a new life on his own at the end. Trilogies of this structure often don't have the time for long, convoluted stories, because each story is confined to the length of one film. But of course, you can still get a great deal of emotion in. But what's my favourite 3-story trilogy? Well, I'd have to go with the Toy Story trilogy. Each film builds on the previous in a believable but meaningful way and explores a different type of toy, like household toys, collector's toys, toys in shops, preschool toys, and over the course of the trilogy, we see just how much the toys love and care for Andy. So, at the end of Toy Story 3, when Andy realises that he has outgrown his toys, including Woody, it brings a really nice sense of closure, ending this chapter of both his and his toys' lives. The second trilogy structure tells 2 stories. The first film tells 1 story, and then the popularity of that film shows to the filmmakers that it can be made into a trilogy, so they craft an epic 2-part finale. Think The Matrix. But before we go any further, I'd like to take a quick look at the trilogy that lies in between these first 2 categories, and that's Back to the Future. Each film tells a complete story, and the characters succeed at the end, but after they've succeeded at the end of Back to the Future Part 2, Doc is struck by lightning and sent back to 1885, and it ends on a cliffhanger. This checks all the boxes for both of these categories, so I really don't know where it should go. If you do, please let me know in the comments below. The 2-story trilogy can have a much more complex story to end, because it has twice the runtime of the original film. But what is my favourite example of this type of trilogy? Well, if this were 2027, I'd probably say the Spider-Verse trilogy. But it's 2025, so Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse hasn't come out yet. But if it's anything like the first 2, then this will easily be my favourite. But as of right now, I'll go with the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. The first film is a really fun adventure film which is a great blend of pirates with a hint of a larger ancient world of magic and curses. But then the following 2 films really nicely expand on this, adding more curses and more lore. It introduces the concept of pirate kings and general pirate politics. It has betrayal, redemption, sacrifice. It tells a really great ending to the Pirates of the Caribbean story, or at least to Will and Elizabeth's part in that story. The final type of trilogy tells, as you can probably guess, just one story across the 3 films. This is where you'll find Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. By splitting one story across 3 films, the story can, of course, be thrice as complex as a single film, meaning when victory does eventually come, it feels far more momentous. My favourite example of these would have to be the original Star Wars trilogy. Possibly the most culturally significant example, Star Wars was always intended as a 3-part series, and by the end of the last film, everything was concluded. Darth Vader is redeemed, Palpatine is killed, or so we thought. But the journey along the way sees the characters jumping from planet to planet, coming up with various elaborate plots to achieve their end goal of overthrowing the Galactic Empire, so when they eventually do it, it feels like such a big deal, because this has been their singular goal since we met them. We've seen these characters, especially Luke, grow immensely over the 3-film arc into skilled fighters and powerful Jedi. And I know I'm not alone in my love for this trilogy, because its popularity has birthed a never-ending stream of Star Wars content. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there was a secret 4th type of trilogy, and what sets this apart from the other trilogies is that, well, it's 4 films, the Avengers films. All the currently released Avengers films form a 3-story trilogy, but there is of course the glaring issue that there are one too many films, which is why it needs its own category. It definitely feels like a trilogy. In each story they have a completely different goal. In Avengers they're trying to stop Loki, in Avengers Age of Ultron they're trying to thwart Ultron's plans for global destruction, and in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame they're trying to defeat Thanos and undo what he has done. And it definitely has a sense of closure. Half of the original Avengers team left. Well, 2 died, and 1 lived out his life in the past. Just look at the closing credits and tell me that this isn't the end of an era. It quite literally is. It is the finale of the Infinity Saga and 11 years of intricate storytelling across 23 films. And you can't get a more momentous ending than that. But what do you think? Is there a type of trilogy I missed? Please let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, why don't you like and subscribe? That way you'll never miss a new video. But, yeah. That's the end of the video now. So, bye.